Another day, another video, another quick message about Bitcoin and crypto. And I'm going to carry on with what I was talking about before, which was about the fact that Bitcoin will leave you rich or poor because it has no emotions, right? It will leave you in whatever condition you leave it, really. And more importantly, as I was ending that video, I said generational wealth is not something you will probably ever attain unless you have literally acquired in your lifetime hundreds of millions of dollars or more, right? Of current day dollars, meaning 2024. Right? If you're not a 100 millionaire, like multiple hundreds of millions, or billionaire, you probably will not have achieved generational wealth. What does it mean, generational? Well, typically, what people mean by that is wealth that lasts multiple generations, and that if you take care of it, you're basically setting up your family to be rich forever, right? You, your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids, anybody who is related to you, if they don't mess up, if they take care of their finances, they're basically set for life, and they don't have to worry about a lot of the petty things that the average person has to live through in a typical life, right? Even in a happy upper middle class life, okay? Um, or even a lower upper class life, okay? Where you still have to worry about knowing the names of your staff, for example, your house staff, which butler works on weekends, that kind of thing. Right? If you're like upper class and you got like 1,000 butlers and maids and people who work in multiple properties of yours, you probably don't even know the name of most of them, right? You get my point. So generational wealth is the kind of wealth where you're just so opulently wealthy, right? That's the idea, is that you're setting yourself up to be a multi-shazillionaire, right? However much, whatever you do in life, you can, live it up to the hilt and basically not have to worry about work and just have fun living life and experiencing stuff and not have to worry about paychecks or any bills and things like that, right? It's all automatically processed and you don't have to worry about it. That's one way to view it, right? And then you can pass it on to your children, and they can pass it on to their children, and they can pass it on to their children, and so on and so forth. Well, who really has that kind of wealth when we're talking about generational wealth, right? It's usually families that have been wealthy for a while, that have grown up living in massive wealth. So, you can say, oh, the Rothschilds, there's like 1,000 people like in the small nucleus of that family, right? So it's not the Rothschilds as a very large family, right? But yeah, if you look at the original generations of the people that built the Rothschild wealth, right? You look at the original founders of that family from hundreds and hundreds of years ago, right? From generation to generation, he taught his kids financial management, risk management, right? How to manage political risk, how to manage economic risk, how to manage financial risk, all these different things, right? Even how to manage traveling risk, right? Crossing borders with finances, with large coffers full of gold or money or whatever, and how to secure all that stuff, right? And he taught them how not to waste it and how to be frugal in their life so that they could afford to be large in their business and to be able to pass it on to their heirs, right? And that their word mattered more than practically anything, that their reputation was practically everything, right? Like without a reputation, what kings or noblemen or general would have ever trusted them with all of their monies, which is exactly how they made a lot of money, right? They acted essentially as a bank in multiple countries that were able to send payments cross-border, even during times of war between warring countries, right? Hello, Yana. Good to see you. So that's intergenerational wealth. An example of it, right, is the necessity is not just having money; it's being able to educate the inheritors to see how the sausage was made in the first place. Because if you don't teach them how, and if the person who builds that wealth doesn't teach his heirs how he built it, they will not appreciate it. All they will see is they'll see a person that they revere as some kind of a, amazing person who succeeded at doing something innovative and risky and somehow managed to make a big success, but they'll never really understand how it was done. So the best they can do is just kind of manage the wealth and pray not to mess it up, right? And they'll be as careful as they can to not mess it up. Well, guess what happens when their kids inherit that wealth, right? When their kids inherit that wealth, they basically are going to blow it because they'll have no appreciation for how it was done, and they'll have no appreciation for taking care of it because they've been waiting their whole life to tap into that just to have some fun and live a little. And their parents have been telling them, no, you got to stay modest and not mess this up. This is going to be your future. And the kids of those kids don't have any chance. And that's why, even if you have, 20 million, 50 million, 100 million, right, by the time you get to the third generation, it's gone. It's usually gone, like completely gone, right? The third generation will usually need to work again. So generational wealth is really talking about money for yourself and your kids if you're lucky. And if you think about it, if you're fortunate enough to live a normal, relatively normal, statistically normal lifespan of, say, anywhere from 70 to 100 years, depending on where you live and what your lifestyle is and what your health condition is and everything else, and your kids do too, right? Then that means that your kids typically won't even get to touch that inheritance money until they're basically retired, right? Until you pass away when they're almost retired or already retired, right? Which means, or you're approaching retirement rapidly, which means that essentially it's not going to do them any good during their working life. So they're not going to be able to take advantage of it for like investment and stuff like that. So they're just going to be like viewing it as a pension fund. So unless you teach them the benefit of, being productive and creating either something of their own or improving on the thing you created, they're not going to see any massive benefit to trying to be entrepreneurial and creative and build the thing that make them even more, right? They're just not going to get it. They're not going to understand that. So what does that mean? Well, it basically means that you need to teach your kids about the power of generational wealth and how you built it and how it remains within the family by passing on the incredibly important education of risk and risk management, right? Making sure that they stay as entrepreneurial as you were, and so that they create something that's as impressive as what you created, if not more, in order to continue building something generation after generation. So it could be like improving on the business, right? Like the Rothschild's kids improved on the original Rothschild financial business, right? They improved on it by adding more services, adding more territories, adding more political protection, adding more clients, whatever it was, right? They didn't just stay on it. And the same thing has to apply to whatever business you create, right? And that's the same thing why Bitcoin, like the Bitcoin parabolic price pumps that people wait for to happen every number of years, those things are, first of all, if you look at them actually using like the Alpha Trading VEPS projection boss, you can see exactly what they are. They're not parabolic price pumps, okay? Yes, it fits neatly into the parabola of a projection boss, but that projection boss is calculated on the standard deviation of returns. It's not calculated on some nonsensical price parabola, right? It's calculated literally on the mean of the returns. It's calculated on the standard deviation. So, like I was saying, the parabolic nature of the projection. Oh, I'll get you. Okay, I'll bring you over. Okay, this might disconnect again. I don't know why. It's because of the location, but it should reconnect in a second. All right, thanks. There we go. Anyway, folks, leakage. You don't want to get the leakage in the product. It's always a not good thing, right? Non-leaky products. We got crazy stuff happening. So yeah, the parabolic nature, if you look at the projection bosses from my alpha trading indicators, you'll notice that the parabolic nature is based either on the boss distribution or normal distribution. Well, what are those distributions of? Those are distributions of the mean, right? The mean of returns. They're not distribution of price. Thank you. Thank you very much. Which means, very simply, right, that the when you see a quote-unquote parabolic price pump on Bitcoin, you're not actually looking at a parabola due to a price pump, right? It's very deceiving, I know, because the candles fit so perfectly. Yes, the candles fit perfectly because price is following the returns. Okay? I know that's a tricky concept for a lot of people, but you got to understand it for what it is. Okay? The returns determine, and we're talking about returns on investment, and specifically the logarithmic returns on investment. They determine what the price action will be. So the reason that the parabolic nature of the projection cones, the projection bosses of the Laplace distribution and the normal distribution happen to fit very nicely when people say, look, it's a parabolic run to the upside. You're looking at the parabola in the wrong way. That parabola is usually going, it's not shaped like the bottom of the parabola and the top of the parabola as if the parabola is U-shaped from, like, and you're looking at it like head on, like the regular letter U, and you're looking at the back half or the right half of the letter U. That's not actually the parabola, right? If you look at the projection bosses, you'll see the parabola is like the letter C on a price chart, right? The parabola is like the letter C. So you're going from the starting point of the parabola, and then you can be even going all of a sudden up very high, and then over, and then up again, and then over, and then up again and over, right? And you're not creating a U shape. What you're doing is you're moving from level to level within the C shape of the distribution, because you're looking at a parabola where the starting point is very tight between all the distributions, and as time goes on, those distribution points get wider and wider between them in terms of upside and downside. Okay, so it's like, it's very natural for people to look at a chart and say, well, look, this parabola went up, so it must clearly be that this is going to happen now, because it looks like it's going to make another parabola to the upside. That's not how that works. Okay, just like generational wealth doesn't work on, well, this guy made generational wealth, so X number of his offspring will too. That's not how that works. Okay? It's returns on investment. If you don't invest in your own future success, you probably won't have any. If you don't invest in your children's future success, they probably won't have any. If they don't invest in themselves and their children's future success, they probably won't have any, right? And when I say invest in your success, I don't necessarily mean money alone or whatever, right? And I also don't mean you have to chase every single degree that you can possibly get in university, because there are people who study until the day they die, and they literally never stop going to university, and they get like 100 PhDs, and they make no material success of their life, and they also don't find a lot of happiness. There's a lot of people like that. Now, of course, there are people who do study most of their lives or all of their lives and are incredibly happy, and some are even materially quite successful. But the vast majority of people who focus on education without end, without a purpose, right? They're not going to be happy in life. Why? Because the vast majority of people do not live in the outlier of existence where material wealth is completely irrelevant to them, in the sense of they still need to pay bills, they still need to pay rent or mortgage, car, education for their kids, medicine, food, utilities, etc., clothes, going out once in a while, living a relatively normal life within a standard deviation of returns, right? Within a normal distribution. Well, so you have to be an extreme outlier as a personality who comes from a specifically fortunate or unfortunate background to not have to worry about the normal things within the normal distributions, like rent or mortgage or utilities or all those things, right? Because either you have everything that you need or you know how to live without any of it, right? But if you're somewhere in the middle, then you don't really have that particular privilege of not really having to care about it, either because you have everything you need or you know how to get fine without any of it, and therefore in another way you have everything you need as long as you're alive. But most people don't fall within those two extremes, right? So it's the same thing with a price parabola. What appears to be a price parabola is not a price parabola. It's price action chasing the returns. The parabola is the parabola of the returns, and it is C-shaped. When you're looking at the U shape that the price makes, or the half U shape that the price makes, when you call it a bull run, that's not a parabola. I know you want to say it is. I know you want to think it is because it looks an awful lot like half a parabola, but it's not. Hey, what's up? Hey, Max. Hey, buddy. Good for you. Good. See. Love seeing dogs I like. Hey, what is that? Skeeter Jean? I don't know who Skeeter Jean is. Isabella. It's a good song by Jimi Hendrix. Hazy. Jimi Hendrix. What is Skeeter Jean? I don't know who Skeeter Jean is. But anyway. Oh, you're Skeeter Jean. Hey, Skeeter Jean. We have to talk about the chat logs. Yes, talk about the chat logs. Let's do it. What's up with the chat logs? Somebody put messages on here recently saying that they have some kind of a wallet app and they claim to put in their secret phrase, and then somebody else wrote in almost an identical message, like the same minute, from a different YouTube account. I have a feeling they're related. I have a feeling it was spam. Please do not ever go look for software where people put in such nonsense, because it's, almost 100% guaranteed that it's a scam. So don't get grifted. Don't get scammed. If anybody ever tells you click this link and you don't know who they are and you don't know what it's about, just don't click. Don't click links that you don't know about. If you haven't done the research and you don't know what they're talking about, and you don't actually trust them and you don't know them in any way, it's just generally a bad idea, right? To click on random links, or even just to go Google for things and click on those links because you found them in Google. Oh, if I found them in Google, it must be okay. No, there's a lot of garbage in Google. Believe me, as a person who's done a lot of marketing work in Google and elsewhere, and a lot of SEO work in order to get things ranked at the top of Google, I can tell you there is a ton of garbage in Google, like on purpose. Some stuff people pay for, some stuff people figure out other ways to get. Ashley said, what are you talking about? I don't know who you are, but whatever that is seems not relevant for this particular video. Anyway, so the price parabola is not a thing you should be chasing. You should be trading, if you're trading, you should be trading movements back and forth between standard deviations of returns or Laplace distributions of returns. You should not be chasing price parabolas. Those things will only fool you. Right? They have no way of telling you the probability of the asset going up, down, or sideways. Zero ability. Right? With probabilities devised from the standard deviation of returns, you actually do have that probability. You actually can calculate it. We can actually tell you 68.2% of the time. Right? There's a 68.2% probability that an asset will close within the first standard deviation, right, or the first Laplace distribution. 95.5% of the time it will close within the second standard deviation, or the 95.5% Laplace distribution, and 99.7% of the time it will close within the 99.7% Laplace distribution, or the third standard distribution. So keep that in mind. If you want to see more about how to trade the VEX, just come to the Alpha Trading Discord. And starts now, actually, I think at like 9 a.m. US Eastern Time in our Discord at alphatradinghq.com/Discord. See ya. Happy trading.